部屋を明るくしてテレビから離れてみてくれよ。
Hello and welcome to episode 28 of AARGH My Optics, a podcast where grown adults discuss, overanalyze and generally take a toy and media franchise originally intended for kids a little too seriously, usually that of the Transformers. I am your compromised by a troublesome tertiary trouser mode host, Orion Ghia, and with me is my locked-in hyper mode after a large bowl of Energon chips co-host, Virtual Dave. Hello, Virtual Dave.
Hello. It's been a while.
It has, yes. We've had a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back. But don't expect anything amazing. so way
We're back by popular demand.
Oh yeah, what? One person? Anyway, way back in episode 16, we made a rod for our back by talking about Transformers Armada.
Wow, that long ago.
The first in a trio of shows that will become known as the Unicron Trilogy, thus dooming ourselves to talk about the subsequent two parts. So, let's fulfill that contractual obligation, shall we, and talk about Transformers Energon. Yay. So, have you prepared a pre-written introduction, Dave?
I don't know how to voice my opinions on this.
So no then, no. The answer is no.
Without saying, I can't be objective like Orion Ghia in this episode.
Oh,
I'll
really?
try my hardest to be, but I don't think I can. Rewatching this now.
Okay,
Just
all right. Well,
putting that disclaimer there.
you're incapable of being objective. All right. Well, I'll just explain to our listeners who may not know what Transformers Energon is. After a few difficult years, Transformers was back. The aforementioned Transformers Armada, with its kid-friendly blocky designs, simple transformations, gimmick-laden play patterns, and gotta catch 'em all minicons, had reinvigorated the line with a much-needed commercial hit. Off the back of that, in 2004, Hasbro and Takara continued their partnership and launched its sequel, Transformers Energon. Minicons were out, mostly, and Omnicons, Terracons, Energon chips, and Energon weapons were in.
Mm-hmm.
Power linking was the gimmick du jour, as well as hyper and brute modes, and back by popular demand, that popular demand being raging internet fanboys, G1 homages they began to crawl out of the woodwork, left, right, and centre. So, Dave, as you just said, you are incapable of being objective. This is because this was kind of your Transformers period, wasn't it? Much like Armada was to a certain extent.
Yes. Similarly with Armada, this was like my first footsteps in the franchise, and Energon was slightly different to Armada because I watched it all, give or take. Like, I definitely made, after missing so much of Armada, I made the effort to really catch every episode of this. And if it required me to set a videotape before I left for school, all of that was done, so I could catch every episode. Back then, obviously, they would show a series, and sometimes they would repeat episodes before the new one would commence, so there was also another way of catching certain episodes or things that were shown out of sync. But the be-all, end-all of it, I did watch a lot of it, and I did collect a lot of the toys when I was younger.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, I was in my mid to late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I'd returned to Transformers a few years earlier with RID, and as I mentioned in our podcast about Armada, I largely ignored Armada. I thought it was too kidsy, it didn't pique my interest. However, by this point, I was very much obsessed with Transformers. I was buying the Dreamwave comics, and I was spending a lot of time on Transformers internet pages like Cybertron.com and TFW 2005, etc. And I just slowly got drawn into Energon. I wasn't really interested in it at first. Then people started saying, well, the Japanese version of the show is better than the US version. You should try that. I did. Mm-hmm. I quite liked it at the time. I started picking up some of the toys. I think the first figure I remember picking up was the Superlink version, the Japanese version of Scorponok, because I just thought he looked great, because he was available in Forbidden Planet Sheffield. And I think I may have picked up a couple of Omnicons or Terracons in Toys R Us before that. I don't know, but generally I just started to get drawn in, and eventually through watching the TV show, I started pretty much picking up all the show characters, and got a little bit obsessed with Terracons. Got every single possible version of those. But yeah, the show I watched entirely in Japanese. So, fair warning, I will probably use the Japanese names for a lot of people. My recollection of the show is very much based on Superlink, not Energon. I've only watched maybe 4 episodes of Energon ever. And I'm not inclined to watch any more.
I can't blame you for that, because on rewatching this now, I can definitely see why people dislike the dub or Energon, and I would be amazed if it doesn't solely revolve around the voice acting of Ghia.
I think the voice acting is abysmal across the board.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like the Transformers have amazing voice acting in this, but for me, when rewatching it, I was like, I must have buried the hatred I had for this character, because I did remember disliking him as a kid, but not enough for me to stop watching it or not buying the toys or anything.
Yeah.
And seeking out his toy, which I never did find. But Ghia is, wow.
He's less annoying in Superlink, absolutely.
Well, yeah. I would imagine so.
Yeah, I mean, it is widely regarded amongst Transformers fans as the worst Transformers TV show there has ever been.
I can argue against it. I can't think of much worse.
Obviously, there have been worse, because there was the Combiner Wars, but that wasn't really a TV show. That was on the internet.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think Energon probably does do worse than even that.
I mean, I've not watched. No, hang on. I watched about 5 minutes of a Combiner Wars show and had to turn it off.
They were only 5 minutes.
There's no time, no pacing, anything. I mean, at least this is done like a proper TV show. So let's talk about the TV show to start, right? So, can you sum up roughly what the plot of the TV show is?
Well, I don't know what the difference is in Superlink and Energon in terms of the introduction, but on Energon's side, it's meant to be 20 years later from Armada.
Yeah, but clearly it's not.
Yeah.
It's 10 years later.
It's meant to be 10 years, but that's how they...
Only one version of the dub does that, and the other version doesn't. There's 2 versions of the dub of that first episode, and one, they say it's 20 years later, and then you go, well, how's that possible? Because that would make the 3 kids kind of in their 30s or something.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So it can't possibly be 20 years later.
Okay, so there's been some time since
it's 10
Armada.
years, roughly 10 years.
And the Transformer War was done, finished. You know, the Autobots working with the humans on Earth, and whatever Decepticons are left around, they've kind of reluctantly started working with the Autobots in different spots around their many bases around the galaxy, it seems. And, you know, everything's fine. It seems to be the peaceful utopia that Prime wanted. And then we get introduced to Kicker, I suppose the Kid Appeal character of the show.
I mean, he's essentially what we've replaced Hotshot with.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And he's just as much of a dick.
I would say he's worse, especially in those first few
No,
episodes.
I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. He's not worse.
So we find out that the humans are working with the Autobots to mine Energon in various places with the help of another new race of robots called the Omnicrons.
Yeah.
That are the only ones who can physically handle and mine raw Energon, as it were. Which is interesting, because it kind of calls back to Beast Wars and how that was a thing on... Like, Energon was just in the planet.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, yeah. But it's everywhere. Energon's everywhere, pretty much.
Yeah, and this, it really expands it that it's just like the lifeblood of the universe, and it can just, if you dig anywhere, you'll find some. And they're using it to build different things, and, you know, they want to solve the energy crisis of the Earth and all that. And then, well, there's this mysterious entity out in space who is a Quintesson, who we don't know why to begin with, but we find out why, their reasons behind it. Is they want to revive Unicron. In order to do that, they need a lot of Energon. So they revive some Terracons to go out and seek out Energon. And then the battle ensues, and slowly but surely, different bad guys from the past return. Some of them are reluctant to swap sides or figure out what's going on, but the majority of them do quickly, as soon as they find out that a possibility of resurrecting Megatron is a possibility. They're all like, well, done with this guarding doors.
Well, that or Megatron just brainwashes them.
Yeah, he does do that when he comes back.
Regularly. He just wanders around brainwashing everybody.
Yeah, and then it quickly, it ramps up pretty fast. I forgot that they do leave Earth, like, in those first few episodes, and they quickly go out into space, and it becomes more of a quest of finding out who's trying to revive Unicron and putting a stop to it. And it gets bigger and more space battles, and then they go to Cybertron, and they're there for a long time.
Well, they're not really. Some people are, but not everyone is.
Yeah. They're sprinkled across, and they have this way of transporting, like they have their space bridge, and then some of them just go in actual ships and stuff.
Yeah.
It all culminates to them reviving Unicron, and it does happen a couple of times.
In episode 40.
Yes, yeah. It takes
or something along those lines. It's really late. It takes forever. I mean, go on.
I forgot to mention the reason why Kicker is so important is because his ability to sense and seek out Energon, which kind of was given to him by Primus. Which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Primus. Ruined his life, didn't he, basically?
Well, yeah, I mean, his father kind of just sent him off on wild missions while he was a child in space.
Sorry, Kicker, you're fucked now, because I made you into an Energon divining rod, and now your dad's going to exploit you for the rest of your life.
Basically, yeah.
No wonder he turned out angry.
Yeah.
This is what I've noted down about the story of Energon. Transformers Energon is the story of the Earth and Autobots hoarding and monopolising the galaxy's Energon supplies through the use of slave labour in the form of Omnicrons. The egomaniacal Dr. Brian Jones emotionally abuses his son and uses him as a sort of Energon divining rod to find and control more Energon. His co-conspirator, the endlessly self-righteous, supremely negligent, and preposterously entitled Optimus Prime. And he provides the muscle to beat back anyone who might want to liberate Energon for their own uses. And then from there, we go into... because it ramps up quite quickly. I mean, I know one thing you said on the on our Armada show was that you thought that Energon was twice as long as Armada.
Mm.
And it's not. It's got exactly the same number of episodes. In fact, it's got one less. It's 51 episodes long if you're watching it in the US. It's 52 if you're watching it in Japan, which we'll get onto. But I'm not surprised you thought it was longer, because it goes on. It just seems to go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It unlike Armada, which took like 30 episodes to get going, which was boring, but at least it got going. Energon gets going very quickly and then just stays there. Just stays on that one level. It ends 3 times.
Yes, I said that. It was just...
there's essentially 3 bits where it seems like the show's over, and then it's not. Well, I've been watching Superlink, and I haven't finished it, but I'd got to the second ending, and I was like, oh, right, well, that's enough. I'll just read the synopsises on TF Wiki for the remainder of it. But it gets going a lot faster, and it kind of settles into, once it gets going, it settles into this kind of the Destrons and the Terracons attacking Autobot cities and stealing Energon to revive Unicron and or Megatron or whatever. And then once Megatron is revived, it's all about getting Energon to reawaken Unicron as a weapon. At least it is for Megatron, or Galvatron as he's known in the entire of Superlink, because why would you change your name back to Megatron? That's mad. So Galvatron wants to revive Unicron as a weapon, but Alpha Q wants to revive Unicron to bring his planet back, to bring his because he lived on a planet that got eaten by Unicron many moons ago.
Yeah, we find out this humble origin very late in the show to find out why he was doing what he was doing. I feel like if he had came with that earlier on, some people might... I mean, well, Rodimus did.
Yeah, but I know, but I mean, that's because he doesn't talk to anyone. He doesn't get to talk to anyone until a lot later, because no one can get to him. Because...
and
go on.
In the Superlink, is he the narrator as well?
There's a narrator?
For Energon, Alpha Q is the narrator. Like, he talks throughout episodes, even when he's not there, about what's going on.
A little bit, sometimes, yes. Yeah, he does. Especially after he, spoilers, dies, he still is talking from beyond the grave.
Yeah, that happens as well. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he does do a bit of that, yes.
Okay.
So what happens is Alpha Q decides he needs some muscle to go gather this Energon, because the Autobots are not giving it away freely. So he revives Megazarak, who, well, we learn something interesting about him later, but you don't, because you don't get that episode.
Oh.
I don't think so. I think that's the one. And so, yeah, he revives Megazarak. He revives Megatron very stupidly, in my opinion. I mean, why? Megatron's not going to help you.
But does he actually try to revive Megatron? Because in the dub, it feels like Megatron revived himself, like he was stealing the Energon from them.
Sort of, but at one point he does want to revive Megatron. He doesn't necessarily all the time want to do that, but it does happen.
Yeah. I thought he was just using it as like to dangle the carrot to get the Decepticons to join along.
I think he was to a certain extent he was, but he was also sort of doing it.
Okay.
So then Megatron comes back online, and obviously he rebels against Alpha Q, and in order to get away, Alpha Q takes Unicron's head. And then for 30 or so episodes, it's all about both Alpha Q and Megatron trying to gather Energon for their own different reasons. And about Megatron, or Galvatron, trying to get back the head of Unicron. Which takes forever as well. And even when he does, it's not that big a deal. It's over fairly quickly. And then we move on to the next bit, where, after 40 episodes, we introduced the Combiners. We've not had them for the entire show, but we introduced the Combiners.
Yep.
But yeah, and there's a big fight. There's lots of big fights. Big people becoming massive giants, having big fights in clouds and shit, and then it ends. So we should probably mention what like the main factors of the show are. So yeah, you've got that setup. The gimmicks of the line. Yeah, the gimmicks of the line there are more than just one. It's not like the previous one where it was just minicons. You've got combination. The Autobots can combine, become each other's trousers and shirts. Prime himself can combine with other things into bigger things. The Omnicons and the Terracons can handle raw Energon and turn them into Energon stars, which power people up, and Energon weapons, although they only use those for a while, then they forget about them.
Yes.
They pretty much stop using them around about episode 20 or something. It's not it's just not something they do anymore. They still use the stars, but they don't use the weapons for some reason. And the Decepticons have hyper modes, which is basically their guns pop out.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the gimmicks.
Oh, and the other one.
What's the other one?
I forgot what you said it earlier. Brute modes.
Oh, brute modes, and brute modes is just kind of, for some reason, some of the Autobots have like a trailer or a thing they carry around that combines with them to make them bigger.
Just because.
Yeah, they just do. They just do. And annoyingly, superlinking, or whatever they call it in Energon.
Power links!
Power linking, right? That involves a bit of footage, which goes on and on forever. And sometimes multiple people do it at the same time, so you get like over a minute of people just spinning around, combining.
Mm-hmm.
They often combine for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't give them any special powers.
Yes.
It's pointless. They just go, oh, Hot Rod, combine with me. Why? I don't know. Let's do it anyway. All right. Then they do it. Then nothing happens. Then they uncombine again. It's just, but every show it happens like 4 or 5 times. Grand Convoy turns into Super Convoy every episode for no reason. But we have to watch him do it. But yeah, because essentially he has a trailer with a bunch of Thunderbirds vehicles in that he combines with, and then looks like a Megazord.
They called the Prime Force in Energon.
I think they're called something similar in Superlink. In fact, I could tell you, Grand Force. They're called Grand Force in Superlink.
Yeah, you sent me some videos of it, like when you were getting through the episodes of you. It's like, it's happening again. What? Sitting here waiting for the episode to continue.
Well, I sent that. You sent you that one where they all combine. Like, there's about 4 or 5 combination sequences in a row. Like, it's not even a gap, and it takes up about 1.5 minutes.
There's one episode where it must be like in the 40s or something. They're on Cybertron. They're all coming through the space bridge in their vehicle modes, and they all of them transform, and it's just everyone sequence one after the other.
Yeah,
I think it's probably like one of the longest ones.
Yeah, it's mad. And there's no reason for them to combine. There's no reason for them to transform. They fly everywhere in both modes. So there's no reason for their alt modes at all. And they just kind of float around in space. They walk around on the outside of spaceships like nothing's happening. Even Kicker does. They stand on the outside of the Miranda 2 all the fucking time. When it's travelling at speed.
Yeah.
And there's no problem here. No problem, because the laws of physics do not apply in Transformers. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, because rewatching it, I thought maybe when they power link, they gain the ability to fly for some reason. Because that time happens at the start. But then, yes, slowly but surely, all of the maybe like the reasons you could possibly think why they power link kind of goes out the window as like, yeah, oh, we're fighting like 1,000 Terracons. We need some more power, but I'm going to combine with you so I can still shoot from my same one gun.
Yeah.
That I had when I was. It doesn't make any sense, you know.
Yeah, they'll often say things to each other like, "I'll be your wings," and they'll combine, and it's like, but you're flying anyway. You're both flying anyway. So I guess we should talk about. Go on.
I was going to say, but I love it. Like, I can't.
Really?
I think this is the thing. This is the thing that I think a lot of modern Transformers shows are missing.
No, what nonsense?
Maybe a little bit of nonsense. Maybe just this hyper Japanese. We take a few seconds to do a transformation sequence. I loved it, and rewatching it, I loved it even more.
You're insane. It is.
I just
some
say I
of the
can't be
worst
objective
television
here.
I've ever seen.
No, don't get me wrong. The show around it is not. It doesn't hold up at all.
It's really bad.
The transformation bits, I love that. Like,
I don't. I'd rather watch an edited version with them all taken out. Because they just take up so much time. And we've seen them before.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, it doesn't matter how many times you see it. It's just... It's that type of, like, visceral...
I wouldn't mind if they did it, like, the first few times they did that sequence. I'd be fine if, like, the first few times that they do it, or when Optimus discovers a new way of power linking with somebody, they do that, that's fine. But if you don't do it every fucking time, don't do it 3 or 4 times every episode, and sometimes more than that. Like, it's tedious. Yeah, it gets on my nerves. My optics! But yeah, so I mean, how about we talk about the animation then? What do you think of the animation?
I was really trying to find this interview that I saw when I was a kid, but I couldn't. But I remember walking to Hamley's, and they had the big display for Transformers Energon when it was, you know, the new hot thing. And there was like this TV there that was talking about Energon, like a behind the scenes thing, and they were talking about the animation, about how like good it looked, how amazing the cell shading was, like it was like top tier at the time. And even then I was like, this looks terrible in comparison to Armada. And even Armada wasn't great at times. Yeah. But this new floaty 3D animation, I don't like it.
Now, the animation is cel-shaded CGI kind of stuff, but only for the robots and a few other things. Like, the rest is hand-drawn, but the robots, the characters that are required to emote, are animated in stiff CGI, which is incapable of emoting.
Yes. It's not even... Well, I mean, the emoting is a big part of it, but I feel like a lot of it gets lost in just their general moving. You know, just the way they walk into a room, or you get the feeling of them landing somewhere, or attacks being hit on them. Like, there's a lot of it that feels really floaty.
Yes. And
it's weird that, like, when people look back and talk about Beast Wars animation, and the common thing people say, it looks like a PlayStation 2 video game or something like that. I'm like, Beast Wars looks immaculate in comparison to the way they animate. Not just the way it looks, just the way they move. And this feels like a game. Like, it really feels like you're watching a cutscene from a really old console. And I feel like that's not one of the larger criticisms of the show, which I feel like it should be.
I don't know. I think it might be quite a large criticism of the show. But I mean, there's lots of reasons that it's not good. And one of them is the CGI is bad. Like, Beast Wars, which came years before it, is better. This looks cheap and pointless, because when it is hand-drawn, it can be really, really good.
Oh, it's so good when they do it. And it's like, it's almost like the bits in Armada that were really good hand-drawn. Weird transformations or shots of a character that's just come in that looks so crisp and they're so detailed when they do it here. Luckily, it's most of the times it's in like emotion scenes or scenes where someone's getting cut down the middle or someone's exploding.
Because the CGI can't do it.
No. It's
so they have to revert back to hand drawn, which just makes you wonder why they did it that way anyway. Like why go to all that trouble and all that expense? Because I imagine it was expensive at the time to do it in CG. Whether it's cheaper than hand drawn, I don't know, but like
generally it is. But
these are your main characters. These are the things that people are tuning in to see. They want to see Transformers. And okay, yes, I can understand why you might think, well, they'd look great in CGI because they're robots. But they have no facial expressions and they move around, like you say, like they're really light, and yet they're going every time they walk. But their legs are flipping up and down like a puppet. They don't look like they're even touching the ground sometimes. I mean, it doesn't look quite so bad when they're in alt mode, because at least they're not meant to be, humanoid things, but it's still not good. And whenever they switch to hand-drawn, it always looks better, always.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, occasionally it's absolutely great, but that's only like maybe 15% of the time you get that. The rest of the time it's this CGI bullshit.
It's also the, what do you call it? The VFX? Like the lasers and the explosions I always felt were very of the same type of bit wonky.
Yeah, there's some hand-drawn stuff. There's some hand-drawn explosions now and again, but then there's also some really bad CGI explosions and stuff as well. Yeah, it's really mix and match, and it feels really incongruous. Like, when they switch between the two, you're like, people look almost completely different, like, it's kind of mad. Like, the episode with Inferno, where he gets basically, kind of tortured. You wouldn't know that was Inferno unless you had what you know what I mean. Like if someone just showed you the clips of those bits, you'd be like, "Who's that?"
Yeah,
because it's like close-ups of his face and so on. And Megatron, there's quite a few bits with Megatron where he's animated and hand drawn, and the proportions are different. I mean, they look great, but they don't look like the show, like the CGI model. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, he has a bigger, juttier chin, and, like, it's all kind of, do you know what I mean? It's like, but I like that animation style, but it doesn't match with the CGI.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it feels like it was added in much later.
What, the hand-drawn or the...
The hand-drawn. Like, I feel like it was, because it's so good, it feels like it was done with a purpose. Maybe they had to fill in things or thought, well, we can't really tell he's being tortured in this scene. We need to change some angles here and change how it's done, but...
And a bit like Armada, Energon hasn't got quite as much... Some of Energon has unfinished animation in it, whereas the Japanese one is finished. There's an episode, I think it's called Battle for the Asteroid Belt, where Galvatron has like a base ship. They have those ships that look a bit like Unicron for a while.
Yeah.
So he has one of them, but the version of the show that Energon got, it's not there.
Right.
It's invisible. So all of the Autobots are staring at nothing and pretend that Galvatron's base is one of the asteroids nearby, because there's meant to be a bloody great big ship in front of them, but it's not there.
Yeah, because it does kind of get brought up. It's like some sort of, like this blue aura around the ship sometimes, and I feel like they use that because they didn't have the ship.
Yeah. But it's not as bad as Armada. There's lots of it in Armada. There's not so much in Energon. Weirdly, despite the fact that the dub is worse, the people, the team dubbing it did actually have finished episodes to work with, rather than half-finished episodes. Which brings us on to the dub, really. So the voice acting. Yeah. You've got Gary Chalk, you've got David Kay reprising their roles of Optimus Prime, Megatron, and they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then everybody else is really they're quite bland, and they all kind of sound roughly the same. And they deliver their lines like they're talking to nobody, because they're not.
Mm.
They'll say there's loads of extra dialogue that isn't in the Japanese one that is just there to make it more confusing.
Yeah, I could imagine that's added in, because there's a lot of like off-screen talking in Energon, and strong voices coming out of the wrong character type of stuff.
Yeah.
It's really, it is good that I must say, it is good that they got a lot of the voice actors to return from Armada, because it really kind of cements the connection between the two. Hearing Cyclonus come back and Demolisher and
all right,
the kids, even Alexis and Ro and Brad and all that, their voice actors are in.
Is Hot Rod the same voice actor? Hot Shot, sorry.
I don't know. It doesn't,
because he doesn't. Go on.
Doesn't sound like him, but it could be. Maybe.
Hotshot is indeed played by the same voice actor. Brent Miller played the character in both Armada and Energon, but strangely, Kirby Moreau, the guy who plays Rad in both Armada and Energon, plays Hotshot in Transformers Cybertron. We have no idea why. Maybe we'll have found out by the time we get round to doing an episode focusing on Cybertron.
He's had a complete character transplant.
I mean, I kind of just always assumed that he just grew up, because he just kind of get a lot of responsibility towards the end of Armada. So,
which he doesn't have any of in this.
No.
He's just a grunt. He's just a guy again. Just a grunt.
But he felt like he's almost like a kind of not a young teen type character like Ironhide is. Like he's a very much experienced bot more than he was in Armada.
Yeah. But it's a really sloppy, really badly done dub. They mistranslate things from the original Japanese so that it makes no sense. Mm-hmm. Regular points. I've been reading some occasionally I've been looking on TF Wiki and looking what the differences are, and there's bits where it's like, why did you do that? Because it made more sense in the original Japanese, but you've gone and fucked it up. Yeah, it's rushed and bad. And it just makes it make even less sense. Because the Japanese voice acting, I mean, it's that standard Japanese voice acting, but it's fairly good.
Mm.
I mean, does Snowcat, or what's he called in Superlink? All the guys, when they get upgraded, they don't change their names as much in Japanese version.
Oh.
Let's find out. He's called... Sandstorm! So yeah, Sandstorm. When Sandstorm gets turned into Snowstorm, he starts yodeling.
Yes.
Does that happen in the... Yes.
It does.
He does. All right. Okay. Why?
Because I guess people who live in the snow yodel. I don't know.
Yeah, because you've got so that in the English version, it's Demolisher becomes what?
Demolisher.
Demolisher stays Demolisher.
He stays Demolisher.
Right. Whereas in the Japanese version, he's Ironhide, and then he's Iron Tread.
Okay.
And Shockwave, Tidal Wave,
mm-hmm.
he becomes Mirage in the US show,
mm-hmm.
but he becomes Shock Fleet in the Japanese. And they're the kind of stupid, subordinate idiots, aren't they?
Oh, well, I mean, does Starscream's name change?
No.
He's the other guy who comes
He's
back.
called Night Scream, but he's called Night Scream the entire time. But the weird thing is they bring him back, and he's nothing like the character from Armada.
No, they kind of bring him back as like
a ghost.
Some sort of ghost, and then he doesn't have the memories of what he was before. And I don't think he ever really gets his memory back.
I think he has him for about 5 minutes. Then Megatron wipes his mind. And then he's just obedient.
Yeah.
And he does that to everybody. He does that to Demolisher. He does it. He does it to Megazarak, Scorponok. He wipes everyone's mind so that they're on his side, and he tries to do it to Inferno, which we'll get onto later. Yeah, he does that a lot. Anyway, the voice acting in the Japanese one's fine, and I think Kicker's less annoying. He's not yelling as much. I think that's the problem with Kicker. He shouts a lot in Energon.
It was so like I recognize the voice actor. Like he's in a lot of good things. So it must be the direction he was given to be that way. But I just don't understand why. Like, why so much?
He's very loud and obnoxious.
Yeah, conversations that don't need it.
I suppose that's what people like or are meant to like. It's like it's exactly the same as Hotshot, but you liked Hotshot. But I thought he was loud, obnoxious, and a massive prick. Yeah,
but I feel like even with Hotshot, it was like there was a reason for it. There was context. He was told to do something he didn't want to do or something. Kicker's just shouting at everybody and kicking everything.
Yeah, but Kicker has been emotionally. He's suffering from PTSD from what his dad did to him.
Yeah,
the poor kid is a wreck.
I mean,
his awful father. His awful megalomaniac nutter of a father is constantly laughing at everything. It just treats him like a tool. He's a horrible piece of work. I get real kind of Gendo Akari kind of vibe off of him. Do you know what I mean?
I don't, but...
From Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
Gendo Ikari is a terrible father to Shinji. Horrible.
Yeah. There's definitely comparisons between those two.
I get that vibe.
I mean, he does give him a cool suit, you know.
Oh, that's another thing. Dr. Brian Jones constantly creates things, and he just pulls them out of his ass. It's like, I've got a spaceship now.
Whole cities. Yeah.
I built a city in 5 minutes. They'll send that over. It takes them ages to build like the first couple of Energon towers, but by episode 40 or something, he's sending thousands of them through the space
all
bridge.
over Cybertron.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's the show, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't make an awful lot of sense.
It's really strange how insignificant the minicons are now. Like they're very. I think
but they're not part of it.
Is there just the two teams? Is the new look of Perceptor bots from the first show? They've got like redesigns, but it's still meant to be them.
Sometimes you see them.
I mean, Kicker.
Sometimes Kicker rides around on them.
He rides around on them like in the first few episodes before they go into space, and then the Star Saber joins along, and he has
that replaces it. That replaces them.
Yeah, because he uses it like a surfboard.
Yeah, and a weapon and anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the minicons are kind of gone, and you know, Mega Supreme has a minicon as a head, which hangs out in his shoulder when he combines with Optimus Prime for some reason. It kind of you watch the animation. It disappears into like a ball of light, and then when it finishes, the ball of light goes into the shoulder. So that's where he is. He's just sat in there watching.
That's what you could do with the toy, you know. Yeah.
But yeah, the minicons are kind of redundant now. The Omnicons and the Terragons have replaced them.
Yeah.
Their job is just basically to mine Energon, to gather Energon, and power the bigger guys up with Energon stars.
Mm-hmm.
Although, after a while, it's just standard that everyone's got an Energon star. So, it don't matter anymore.
Yeah, they kind of made a big deal about it to begin with, and then it slowly just...
Yeah.
Because they could do other things. They didn't just spawn weapons. Sometimes they would just create Energon shields for them and give them little energy boost to punch or whatever, but then it's just, nope.
But then there's the conceit that the good Energon can't be penetrated by the bad Energon, because that's why they have those Energon grids, which they create to cover planets and stuff. And so we have all that, and we have a whole kind of story going on, and then we get to what we think is the ending. A rift opens up in space, and then everyone goes through it, and we just do it all again now. We've got new planets. The head of Unicron has become a sun, and Alpha Q is creating loads of planets that are exactly the same as like Earth. Basically, you've got all these cities on Earth, like Desert City, Ocean City, whatever city, of Jungle City. And then they get there, and instead you have Jungle Planet, Ocean Planet. It's the same. And then we do that again. And then finally Unicron finally gets put together and starts to become a threat. But, oh look what Dr. Brian Jones has pulled out of his arse. A Mega Supreme. Here he is. You can combine with him, Prime, and then you can fight Unicron. It just goes on and on and on. And then, when they finally defeat Unicron isn't completely defeated. He turns into a kind of glowing ball. And then we discover the Combiners really late in the game. And we have more fighting, and then more getting massive, and more fighting again, and then it ends again.
But they find the super duper Energon.
Yeah, super Energon. Yeah, which just changes people's colours.
Yeah.
Upgrades people. I mean, there is, Primus decides to send his power to help everybody. And that changes people's colours, so new toys.
Yeah.
But that happens really late. I mean, I've been watching the show, and I was honestly thinking, when do they all change colour, and when do the Combiners turn up? Because I'm 35 episodes in and it hasn't happened yet.
This is it. This is why I always say it feels so much longer.
Yep.
It really... I was surprised because you were ahead of me rewatching it, and you were showing me bits, and I was like, why is Hotshot still Hotshot colours? I swear he's changed from his silver and orange at this point, but no, you
To be fair though, all the redecos are bad.
Yes.
None of them look good.
Yes, completely agree.
Apart from maybe Starscream. Starscream gets a kind of more G1-like redeco.
Yeah. But...
And Megatron turns into... Well, Megatron, who is always called Galvatron in the Japanese show, turns purple.
Yes.
Then he decides it's called Galvatron again. Imagine just changing your name because of the colour you are, like, consistently. It's like, oh, sorry, I can't currently be called Galvatron because I'm grey at the moment. I need to turn purple to be Galvatron. That's how it worked in the last show, and that's how it's going to work in this show.
I mean, even the corpse that was in Unicron was Galvatron's body.
Yeah,
but they kept calling him Megatron.
Well, yeah, but not in Superlink. It is quite a messy show. I mean, is there anything in particular you want to talk about with the show that we haven't covered?
I mean, I thought the beginning bit was quite interesting in terms of, like, the lore of the show. Like, because a lot of the shows you don't really... I mean, it does happen sometimes, but I mean, like, the war is over. So what do we do now? Type of thing. And that kind of stuff was kind of interesting, and how they kind of got along with the Decepticons, and how basically they just put most of them on guard duty. You didn't really... Like, there's a bit, I think it's either episode 2 or episode 3, where Cyclonus and Tidal Wave go missing after the attacks. Yeah. And, like, Demolisher's like, well, what happened to them? Well, are you guys going to look for them? And they're like, oh, we didn't even get a chance. We kind of forgot. Maybe next time. And and he was like, oh, you would look for them if they were Autobots, though. And you're like, yeah, but...
Well, there's this thing. Demolisher has quite an interesting story for a while. Because he's the one who doesn't switch sides at first. He stays on the side of the good guys for quite some time. And this happens quite a few times. Characters get some kind of development and they look like they're going somewhere, and then either Megatron wipes their mind, or they die, or something, and it's all gone. That's all disposed of. Ironhide or Demolisher demolisher an idiot after he gets transformed into his new version, Iron Tread or Demolisher Part 2 or whatever.
Just keeps beating his chest for some reason.
Yeah, he acts like a monkey. I don't know what's going on.
Why?
Yeah, it's why does Snowcat yodel?
And Mirage does ballerina dances.
Yeah. And he gets pulled along on the back of Shockfleet.
Yeah.
It is odd. But yeah, there's lots of the setup is quite good, but then it sets it up. But then it all just gets like I said, it just goes into this long, never-ending. I mean, Megatron spends 90% of the show sat down.
Yes.
On a throne.
Once he gets his throne of tentacles, he's like, "Yep, this is me.
Yeah,
I like it here."
He's just sat down. He's just sat down inside Unicron, and everyone else does stuff, but he just kind of like orders them about, but he doesn't do anything. You've got some really good character development with Scorponok until you don't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, you think he might fight back against his programming, but he doesn't. Because he gets reprogrammed. Originally, he's working for Alpha Q, and even when he becomes a Decepticon, he's working for Alpha Q. But then Megatron just goes, "Oh, that first dose of mind wiping didn't work, so I'm going to do it again." And now you're just one of my goons. And you have Ironhide trying to convince him to switch back, like what happened with Inferno, which we should talk about in a second. But it never happens. So yeah. The Inferno episode I like. I do think that's good. Mm-hmm. So there's a storyline with Wing Dagger, who becomes Wing Saber.
I like that as well.
Because he's a guard on Cybertron. We haven't heard anything about Cybertron for ages, but all of a sudden there's a Decepticon revolt on Cybertron. We don't know why, how that happened, but Laserwave or Shock Blast, he is chained up, because that just seems to be what people do with Laserwave. And he gets free, and he kind of helps Galvatron, but he also wants to take over. He's a bit Two-Face, isn't he?
It's a bit crazy.
Yeah, he is crazy. He's very ineffectual, but he does try to take over. Anyway, Wing Saber's friend Padlock, Wing Dagger's friend Padlock gets murdered, and he's very sad. And it's the first moment in the entire show where there's any emotion about anything. Mm-hmm. And it's about someone you've just met.
It's one of these, like, I don't know, what would you call them? The red shirts of the series? These background robots who all kind of have the same bodies, but different colours. Yeah. And finally they can talk and actually have a plot point.
And they're only there some of the time. Like,
yes.
Just on a slight tangent, after what Shock Blast does, he, like, liberates an entire army of Decepticons, and they go up to Unicron. They go into Unicron in exactly the same way. It looks exactly like they're going into the Death Star, and they land, and they all get out, and there's all these Decepticons. We never see them again.
Yep.
Does Unicron eat them? I don't know. They just disappear, because from then onwards, it's still Megatron and his 5 or 6 cronies. You never see any of those Decepticons ever again. But like I was saying, we've got the thing with Wing Dagger where, again, Dr. Brian Jones just goes, "Oh, we just created a new body for Wing Dagger called Wing Saber. So we'll do that." And Wing Saber has to work out his issues with Laserwave, which results in him chaining him up again. Because that's what he does. Mm-hmm. And then they go, all right, for no discernible reason at all, all the Autobots leave him there, and they post Inferno, on his own to guard him. Unsurprisingly, the Decepticons come to get Shock Blast, and they threaten to reformat him. Megatron threatens to reformat him because he's been a bit of an arsehole. But Shock Blast goes, no. How about I prove to you that I'm loyal by capturing you an Autobot? And he goes, "Oh, that will be interesting. Why don't you do that?" So Galvatron agrees. However, he instantly gets Starscream to do it instead. So Shock Blast does nothing. And then Galvatron begins reformatting Inferno into a Decepticon. The goodies turn up too late, really, and it's already in him. He fights his Decepticon programming admirably for like the next 3 episodes or so, and then he uses the fact that he's turning into a Decepticon to lure Galvatron and the Decepticons away while the Autobots build the Energon grid. Mm-hmm. And then he throws himself into the sun and dies. And everyone is very sad for 5 minutes until he comes back.
Well, I mean, it's a while before he comes back, but yeah.
It's like 4 episodes. It's not really a while. Honestly.
It's like, guys, I'm back and I've got a new name.
He hasn't got a new name in Superlink. He's still called Inferno.
Oh, is he? He's called, I think it's Roadbuster or something in Energon.
Roadblock?
That might be it. It's Road something.
Like that. Yeah. I think in the toy line, in the show he's just called Inferno. In the toy line, I think they call him Inferno Vault Inferno or Inferno Vault or something like that. He's got a slightly different toy, a bit like when Galvatron turns purple, he's called Galvatron General, and Night Scream's called Reverse Night Scream or Night Scream Reverse or something when he changes colour. But he's still the same character. But yeah, then go on.
I thought that was it's interesting because we've spoken about it before. Like, what is a Decepticon? And this really just muddies the water more. Like, is it a choice?
Well, in this, no. Well, it isn't. If you don't toe the line, Megatron will brainwash you into a Decepticon. You either be bad or he makes you bad.
It does feel like the other's doing it out of fear.
Yes.
So yeah.
So I like that Inferno episode, but this is it, right? And now there's one episode after that episode, I think it is, that you don't get, that never got dubbed, which is called Return Our Megazarak. It's the 33rd episode in Transformers Superlink. Mm-hmm. It never got dubbed. It wasn't in Energon. They just missed it, and no one knows why. They just didn't do it. But it's got some important plot points in it. So the plot is that in the previous episode, Inferno threw himself into Alpha Q's Energon sun to avoid turning into a Decepticon, during which time Alpha Q calls out to Megazarak, who has been brainwashed by Galvatron, but Alpha Q believes that he can bring him back. Then they take Inferno's disembodied spark back to Cybertron for him to be reborn. You don't get this in Energon, you don't know, he just turns up later.
Yeah.
Everyone's very sad, even though everyone knows he's coming back. Alpha Q, thinking he's broken through to Megazarak, is sad that the new Energon grid that they built is going to prevent Megazarak from coming back, because he can't come through the Energon grid. Meanwhile, not giving a shit about this, because he's a full-on baddie, Megazarak goes to a really dark room and tells Galvatron that he's discovered that the Energon sun is actually Unicron's head. Again, great, important plot point that you don't get in Energon. But Galvatron decides that because there's a huge Energon grid surrounding the sun, which he now knows is Unicron's head, and he wants Unicron's head, but he can't get through that grid, that he's going to go and attack some other planets that are outside the grid to get enough Energon to break through the grid with Unicron's body. Then there's a flashback where Alpha Q explains, this is him talking to Kicker through his mind link. They have a weird mind link for some reason. No, we don't know why, but they do. So he explains that Megazarak was created using the wandering spark of a Destron warrior, and that he used him to create like a copy of the Megazarak who he knew from his home planet. And for some reason, this is supposed to convince Kicker that Megazarak's loyal, which is a weird way of trying to convince him of that. But he's basically saying he wants him to drop the grid so that Megazarak can come back. They don't. Instead, what Alpha Q does is he starts developing a planet that's outside the grid using his powers into a replica of Planet Q, where Megazarak and Alpha Quintesson are from, or at least the being that Megazarak is a copy of. So Megazarak goes there to mine Energon. The rest of the Decepticons hang out in space arguing, because they're not good at collecting Energon anyway, so they're leaving him to it, and him and his Terracons are down on the planet. And Alpha Q uses like a spot of light to lead Megazarak to a replica of Alpha Q's palace, hoping to jog his memory. But Megazarak does not care, and just destroys it. And then the Autobots turn up to stop the Decepticons taking Energon. Galvatron turns up, everyone fights. Cue all the combination animations. Then Roadbuster has a one-on-one fight with Scorponok where he tries to break through to him. help him break his Decepticon programming, calling him out for giving into it where Inferno didn't. Scorponok doesn't care. He's not interested. He's like, no, Galvatron's my boss. Hearing that, Megazarak attacks him with a beam of light, which doesn't achieve anything, but because he's been neglecting his job of gathering Energon, the Terracons flee and then the Decepticons withdraw, and then they stand around in the dark while Galvatron chastises Megazarak for not doing what he's told. Then Prime orders everybody to protect the planet until the Energon grid can be expanded to cover that planet, and Roblus vows to defeat Scorponok once and for all. So there you go, that's the episode that was not in Energon. What do you think of that?
Of all the episodes for them to miss out, it does seem like quite a crucial one.
Because, yeah, it develops things like the relationship between Roadbuster, Ironhide, and Megazarak, Scorponok. And it also covers the fact that they finally know where Unicron's head is, which must just be assumed from the next episode, you know? That, oh yeah, we know that now. How do you know that? So, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? And apparently there's no one can tell anybody why they didn't dub that episode, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So that's why the Japanese show is an extra episode longer.
Strange.
It's a pretty good episode as well. It's quite, it's one of the better ones, to be honest.
Especially that whole thing about you seeing Inferno, like he's definitely coming back, because watching it with that not there, you kind of think, oh well, he's not coming back, and then he does.
In a way, I suppose it's more of a surprise when he turns up, so maybe it's sort of better. But yeah, they basically go, oh, we managed to rescue his spark, and we're taking it back to Cybertron.
I mean, I remember that when it happens, and you see the new guy, and it's like, well, it could at that point, so many people share molds. It could be just like Inferno's brother, like Sick Shot and Shock Blast.
Well, he's got a different head. He's got a different head, so like he doesn't look exactly like Inferno, does he?
No, it could have been someone coming for revenge, for all I know. But yeah,
the less said about Sick Shot being Scorponok's, Shock Blast's brother, the better, to be honest. Why?
How does that?
Didn't need to do that.
What is the connection there? Like, why? Why do you think they did that?
Well, I mean, I know that they did it because they wanted to sell a repaint of Shock Blast, but why they couldn't have done something different, I don't know. I mean, I suppose they just needed him in the show, and that was the way they were going to do it, because they killed him, which was quite in quite an interesting way, actually, because he spends most of his time trying to fool Megatron into giving up Unicron to him, and he fails every time, so he just resorts to going, look over there, it's Concord! And Megatron goes, what? And then he gets in the throne. Yeah. And then he tries to take over Unicron. Unicron immediately consumes his body, takes him over, and then Optimus, well, a Mega Convoy, or whatever you want to call it, the combination of Omega Supreme and Convoy, have a fight with him. And Optimus tries to convince Laserwave to fight back against Unicron, to the point at which eventually Laserwave does, and the moment he does it, Unicron just smashes him like a bug.
Just like in the 86 movie.
Yeah, yes, true. So really, that's Optimus Prime's fault. That's on Optimus Prime. Again.
I mean, of all the ways to die in this show, that is probably one of the cooler ones. To be punched by Unicron.
Yeah. But then, I mean, Megatron gets kind of taken over by Unicron as well, doesn't he, really? So.
Yeah, but it feels more like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing in the dub. Like, his eyes just change colour, and he's like, Galvatron, Unicron, you...
But sometimes the wrong...
Use the wrong voices as well, like,
Sometimes the wrong character's talking when he's in Unicron mode.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, it gets weird towards the end, where they just get bigger and have, like, a really weird texture on their character models.
Oh, that's weird. It looks like they're covered in sweet wrappers.
Yeah, it's... I mean, obviously it's to give the impression that they're bigger, but Does it?
It just looks crap. Just looks bad. And then their final super mode after that is hand drawn and looks amazing.
It's 2D animation, yeah. It's so...
They just shed all those sweet wrappers and they have a fantastic hand drawn fight.
I mean, it's like the most over the top Japanese showdown ever. It's so. I mean, I do enjoy that.
You mean since the last one?
I mean, because it's such a weird parallel. Because the final showdown in Armada was so serious and visceral. Like they were ripping parts off each other, and then it just. I'm just going to introduce myself every time I get bigger.
Yeah, this is the new version of me.
I'm the supreme leader of the Autobots.
This one's called Super Duper 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 Galvatron.
My optics!
Anything more you want to say about the show before we move on?
As I say, what did you think of the introduction of RC and being the leader of the Omnicrons?
Meh.
This was RC's return since G1. Wasn't this a big moment at the time? No? No one cared?
Not for me, it wasn't, no. She's called Ariel in, Superlink. But, no, I mean, she's alright, but she doesn't do much.
Yeah, she doesn't really.
They make a big deal out of it, and then she does fuck all for ages. Like, she's just there. And she just kind of hangs around with the humans because she's the same kind of size. And sometimes Kicker rides her. At one point, Misha rides her in one of my favourite episodes.
No.
The one where they all have a race.
Oh yes. Got to have a race episode
on Circuit Planet, which is just roads. It's a planet that's just roads.
Let's have a race, guys. It'll be fun.
Well, the name of the episode in Japanese is Robuster Special Training, where I think it's called Crash Course in English. Right. But even though it's a silly throwaway episode, it does kind of develop Robuster's character a bit and his partnership with Kicker. So it's not too bad.
See, my favourite episode is the other random throwaway episode that happens later, which is the one with it.
I knew it would. I knew it would be. I mean, as soon as you started saying that, is it the one that's like a computer game?
Yes. How did you know?
Yeah, the one that's like Street Fighter.
For no reason. It's just so random. Like, and it's like so close
it's right towards the end of the series as well. It's really late on.
Yeah, it's like I remember watching it as a kid. I'm like, oh, this is a big tone shift from the last episode.
Yeah.
What's And even watching it now, like I still don't understand what's happening in the context of the show, because it opens up with Galvatron telling his troops, you have to watch this and hope you learn something from it. And then at the end of the show, it ends with Kicker watching a screen with the Autobots are clearly lying down, plugged into something. And he's like, you guys...
Isn't it some kind of virtual reality game or something?
But were they both playing it at the same time? Like, was both Optimus and Galvatron like, do you want to play that game? We haven't played in years, you know?
I don't know. It's a very odd one.
We did some digging around on this one. The reason it makes so little sense in the context of the show is it was never meant to be an in-continuity episode. In Japan it was broadcast as a special, with no episode number, at a different time and on a different day to the regular show, to commemorate the 500th Transformers episode ever. Whereas the dub chose to incorporate it into the regular show. Baffling that they dubbed this, and not, say, the one we spoke about earlier. It was full of jokes specific to the Japanese version of the show, and completely incongruous with the rest of the show.
I really love the Combiner's transformation sequence in that, because it's all 2D, and it looks pretty good. Mm-hmm. I love that Demolisher and Snowcat decide to, like, what if we power link? What would that be like? And they actually do it, and it's just so random, it's so wacky.
It's very Japanese. No, it's quite good in that way, yeah. I mean, at least it's different from the usual baddie stealing Energon, goodies stopping them, which is like every other episode.
Because I think at that point they're like, what is it? Megatron has weaponized Energon gas. Yeah. And it's just like, no one can be in this thing, and it, you know, kept turning the tide of battles and stuff, and it's kind of got a bit repetitive towards that bit, you know. It was nice to break it up with it.
No, that's an all right choice, I would say. I think the other one I really like is the Inferno episode that I mentioned. I like that because it feels like Inferno actually has a character, and he does something important. Whereas most of the time, no one has any character. No one does anything important. Like, none of the Autobots ever do anything like of worth. They just sit there waiting for things to happen.
Well, it's kind of the thing about the show, which I don't think it does it well, but it's something they're definitely trying to get across. This whole authority thing of, like, maybe your leader's not always making the right decisions. And there's definitely times where Prime is really not making the right decision, and they question it. And I think there's one episode where, like, Ironhide wants to go help him or something, and he walks up to him and punches him in the face. He's like, I've given you orders. Get back in line.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I remember that one. And then, less than a minute later, they disobey his orders, help him, and it's fine.
Yeah, like, it's just...
No consequences.
But it's a constant thing, like, because there's that episode when Starscream's introduced and he's trying to, like, kill Prime. And Prime is just willingly walking around with nobody, and they're all trying to, like, help him or whatever. And he's just like, look, get back to your posts. You know, we've got to look after the Energon. I've been at this game a long time. I don't need a babysitter.
Optimus Prime does nothing the entire... I mean, apart from just get told what to do by an insane scientist. He doesn't really do much. Like, everything he does is like, oh, I have to stop this because it's my job. And I'll fail most times. Like when he tries to push Unicron away from Blizzard Planet, and he's still pushing him when half of Blizzard Planet is destroyed. He's still pushing him. It's like, it's over, Prime. That planet's fucked.
I can do it.
And then
a little bit more time.
And then Unicron just opens his chest up and blows the rest to smithereens. And all the time it's like, oh, I'm going to try. And it's like, well, you're failing. Constantly.
But that's what they do at the end, isn't it? They try to, like, really cement it. It's like, we all power linked together, guys. All the Autobots
teamwork
joined his, that type of, we did it. You know?
We did it together. Did you? Or did Optimus just get massive? Probably the latter.
Because he only can do it, well, yeah, he only does it when he joins with the Mega Supreme and he has this mega super duper bigger form.
But that's because Primus lends him his power.
Yeah, and they fight on the cloud for the first time, right? And they all...
Yeah, all of a sudden, for some reason, there's a big cloud in space. We don't know why. Is it just so they only have to animate them from the waist up?
Probably.
And it's a really badly animated fight, like, because it's all CGI.
It's so weird.
Yeah, so, favourite character? You said what your favourite episode is, or do you have a least favourite episode? No, me neither. No, they're all boring. Yep, you're right.
Yeah.
They're all quite bland.
It would probably be an episode from the beginning. Like, I didn't like some of the bits with Kicker at the start. And eventually, you know, he kind of, like, balances out. Maybe the whole thing with, like, Six Shot and stuff like that. Some of those weren't very good episodes.
Yeah, he's a bit of a dummy,
isn't he?
Just
conning his way. And then he gets stepped on by Galvatron in the end. Like, yeah, maybe some of that.
It's a shame, really, because at first I quite liked the character of Shock Blast. But then, as it went on, it just became more and more clear that he couldn't get anything done. And then he just gets killed. That's it. So it's a bit of a wasted opportunity. So as far as characters, I don't have a least favorite episode because there's just so many boring ones that any of the episodes that are boring are not good, and there's a lot of them. But a favorite character? Do you have a favorite character?
I did like the thing they did with Wing Saber and Wing Dagger. I don't know if I like the whole kind of callback to Orion Pax and him getting rebuilt type of thing into some sort of soldier who died defending his dead friend type of thing.
Yeah, I suppose you could see it that way, yeah. I suppose you could kind of draw that comparison.
I liked that, but he didn't do anything really. He just became Prime's combiner pants and arms. From pretty much after he was introduced, that's all you saw him as.
Yeah, he just follows. He's just Optimus Prime's shadow. He just follows him around and turns into bits attached to him. Like he doesn't do anything on his own except chain up Shot Blast once.
Yes, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I think it probably would have to be like a Decepticon. I think I like Megatron in this. He's not as competent as he was in Armada, but I like his new abilities, these new things he can do. Like in the grand schemes of a kids show, I do like the way he just manipulated people, and if he couldn't, I'll just brainwash you instead.
Yeah,
and torture you to the point of like, I'll make a metal robot look like he's been beaten up, because he does it to Scorponok a lot. He gets all puffed up. Like,
yeah, that's weird.
From all the punching and stuff. Like, okay.
It looks really weird. But yeah, I suppose he's alright. He does, again though, he just sits around a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's fine. I think Inferno's probably my favourite character, like for the reasons I already mentioned. I like Laserwave, but again, he ends up being a bit underused. Alpha Quintesson's interesting because he's kind of a bit of an enigma, and they really, they're kind of an enigma. I don't think in Energon, when you hear their real voice, their true voice, is it like a child?
No,
it is in Superlink. So it's basically like a scared child, or a scared child.
Probably makes more sense in the way it plans, and it makes, yes. I suppose Demolisher would be my other character of choice.
Really?
Until they didn't do anything with him, but at the beginning bit, it was interesting.
Yes, until he gets reformatted.
Yeah.
He's sort of interesting.
Before that.
Do you want to talk briefly about the theme tune? It's one of the laziest redone versions of the Transformers theme tune. It's just very basic.
I mean, to be fair, I don't mind it as like for the transformations or like a pump up. And
could be worse. Could be Cybertron.
Could be Cybertron. I don't mind it as for that, but for the intro, it is a bit. It's a bit much because we are going to hear that theme song a lot in the show. Like it does get used a lot.
Thankfully, you don't hear it in Superlink because it has a different theme tune, and it doesn't use that at all ever.
But they do use the Superlink song.
They do
at some points in Energon.
They use it during the fight between Galvatron /Unicron and Omega.
Yeah, they use it a couple of times. It's like,
but without the lyrics.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the theme tune's Japanese theme tune's quite good, and the intro is better. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
It has some hand-drawn stuff in there that's specifically for the intro. It tries to set up the body relationship between Kicker and Roadbuster, and Kicker's romance with Misha. Not that he really has a romance with Misha.
Did you notice that as well? I mean, I guess you looked it up, but sometimes she's called Misha, sometimes she's called Mika.
That's just a bad dubbing.
Sometimes they give her a constantly changing her name.
Yeah. Well, isn't there two characters in the dub that they constantly get the names around the wrong way? Isn't it Cliffjumper and Downshift, who are called Wheeljack? Who's called Wheeljack in the Japanese version?
Which makes sense, because he looks like Wheeljack.
But they get their names around the wrong way, don't they? And the other one, Cliffjumper, who I can't remember the name of. Is it Override or Overdrive? Something like that. He has a weird vocal tick where he always goes, "Check it out!" in the Japanese one.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Okay.
My optics!
Hello, Orion Ghia here. This particular episode of AARGH My Optics is well long, so we've cut it into more digestible chunks. You can find the next part straight after this in our uploads, or, if I've worked out how to do it, you can see a link on the screen right now. Thanks for listening.